to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. It's Power Talk Friday. Brad Leavitt of AFT Construction is back on the show today. This is Brad's third time on the show. In the last episode, we talked about the importance of the design build book, the various levels of design build books that he receives from the designers he works with, and he also explained to us always strive to put the best book together that you can, regardless of the level of expertise that you've already reached, right? So what he's saying is he's encouraging you to start and to do it at whatever level you can, but always strive to up level as you gain experience and knowledge, okay? To this end, Jenny Slingerland, the owner of Black Ink Interiors, and the lovely lady and my friend who introduced me to Brad, will be teaching Design Build for Profit this September. That's right. Jenny and Brad have worked together on luxury design build projects, and now Jenny is going to teach you the proper documentation and drawings you need in order to deliver a terrific entry-level design build book to builders, okay? You will learn from Jenny's successes and her mistakes, and you will learn how to lock down an effective process so that you can get the attention and respect of a builder that you do a project with, all right? This is an entry-level course designed specifically for you if you have not created your own design build process yet, let alone having ever created a design build book, okay? The course will be taught live, all right, so that you can ask questions of Jenny. We also have the private Facebook group for the additional support. But through this class, you will get the confidence that you need in order to lead a homeowner through the project. And in doing this, you're going to increase the efficiency of the builder. It's a win-win-win. Okay. And also, if you don't have any particular client in your pipeline that might be coming up and knowing that there's a design build, just having been through this course, you will then understand and have the confidence to pitch yourself to a builder in your particular area about possibly exposing you to his projects and to his clients so that you can increase his efficiency. You have to listen to the other shows with Brad because he really explains why it's so important for a builder to have you on the project, okay? So we are in early bird registration right now. Go to designbuildforprofit.com, okay? Designbuildforprofit.com. Now, today, Brad is here to talk to you about the B word, budgets, okay? And I'll just give you a little background in case you haven't heard episodes 542 or 560, Brad's first appearances on the show. He is the president of A Finer Touch Construction, or it's also known as AFT Construction on social. His company is based in Arizona, and he focuses on luxury residential and commercial projects, okay? He also is the host of AFT Construction Podcast, which I highly encourage you to go listen to, because when you learn firsthand the struggles that builders are facing, then you know exactly how to be the best partner for them, all right? And that makes them want you on the projects as opposed to somebody else. All right, so today, let's hear what Brad has to say about builders and budgets, okay? And I also even share with him a question that a designer wrote into me, a friend of mine actually wrote into me and said, the next time Brad's on, would you ask him this? So Jillian, here comes the answer to your question. Before we get to the show, let's just give a huge shout out and a thanks to Cravat Inc. for sponsoring the show. You know that you can rely on Cravat for wallpaper, fabric, trim, everything that you need to complete your window treatment projects and also custom furniture projects. Don't forget about curatedcravat.com. You've got that whole line available to you, which is also housed in your MyDoma Studio platform, by the way. Whatever it is you need, you can go and find it from Cravat. Reliable, 102 years in business, and our longest and most valued podcast sponsor. So go over to Cravat.com, open up your trade account today. Don't forget, with your order, you can place any one order for 10% off by using the code AWDB10. AWDB10, 10% off any one order. All right. I'm excited to talk to Brad again. This is a great show. Hi, Brad. Thanks so much for coming back to A Well-Designed Business today.
So grateful to be back. Thank you, LuAnn.
Our favorite builder, Brad. I have to say, I am just getting so much positive feedback about your coming on the show. The designers are loving this perspective. So yay for taking the time out of your busy day in life and business and podcasts of your own to come here and help us. We're the better for it. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It's mutually beneficial. So thank you, LuAnn.
Yeah. So one of the things, Brad, is last episode we talked in great length and depth about having a design build book. And we spent a lot of time talking about what an A+ tier book looks like. And of course, you're an A+ tier builder. And for your level, that is the creme de la creme, that when you work with a designer partner that is able to execute that. So if anyone listening, if you missed that episode, please go back. And I love that you also, in that episode, I just want to say, mentioned that you don't pop out as an A-list, the ability to do an A-list design book. It is years and years of experience. And fortunately, along your way in growth and maturation in your business and your skill set, the builders kind of match it with you. Not every builder is an A-list tier builder either, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're all work in progress. So.
That's exactly right. So I just wanted to recap on that a little and encourage the designers to go and listen to that show. But here's the next logical step in that conversation is whether we are creating an A-list design build book or an entry-level design build book that we're so proud of, absolutely, but is entry-level nonetheless. No matter where we do this, we have to do it within the client's budget. And it doesn't matter if the client's budget is $300,000 or $10 million. The budget is the budget. And this is a very hard thing for, not because a designer doesn't know how, but it's a dance, right? It's like wanting to design the best, wanting to answer the needs that your client is asking you to include, but then understanding and knowing a step ahead where the traps are going to be, that it really is going to whack out the budget, right?
Absolutely. So, it's interesting that you say that, LuAnn, because we all have to be speaking the same language. So one of the reasons where you and I hit it off, one of our, the protocol of our company is that we're not going to do a project unless an interior designer is hired, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how it starts. And what should be happening is whether the designer's hired first or the builder's hired first or the architect, that team should be communicating together with the client. Hey, it's really important that we get the team together for many reasons, one of which is budget. Okay, everyone has a budget. You mentioned this, LuAnn, whether it's $10 million or $500,000, doesn't matter. So what needs to happen is we need to all be on the same page. So the client may say, Brad, we have a budget of $1 million. Okay, well, that's going to mean something different to my designer, to my architect, to myself, right? And so what needs to happen is now the team needs to be communicating together with the client. Let's get together. Let's sit down and let's break this out. Okay, we have $1 million. Let's say that the house is going to be 2,000 square feet at $500 square foot, just for simple math here. Okay, so with that budget, we understand data history. We should have a good understanding. A good builder should know, okay, I'm going to need this much for framing, this much for concrete, this much for waterproofing, stucco, whatever the exterior finish is. That's fine. What's really important is now that the builder's sitting down with the designer and the designer's asking these questions to the builder. Okay, how much do we have for tile? How much do we have for wood flooring? How much do we have for cabinetry? How much do we have for countertops, for cabinet hard, for light fixtures? And then it needs to go a step further where now that's great that we have, $50,000 for wood flooring. Okay. What's your labor? Every contractor is going to be different depending on the subcontractors are hiring. So if we have a square foot value, and let's just arbitrarily say that it's $10 a square foot for wood flooring, well, the builder should be able to say it's going to, $350 for labor, $650 for material. And that $650 number is based on my purchase price, not retail. So if I can go to my designer and say you have $650 a square foot for wood, they're set up perfectly now where they can go through and they can work with all their manufacturers, and they could look at the different colors or stains or grades, or whether it be oak or whatever it may be. And then now they can pick flooring within that budget. And it sets them up for success where now when they're designing and doing the color palette and putting all those materials, they know that the wood flooring they're putting in to match the countertop, to match the cabinetry, is going to fit the client's budget. And what's even better is, let's say the client is meeting with the designer and they're like, well, I do like this wood flooring you selected at $650, but I really like this one. I like this wide plank one that's $850. It's easy for the designer to say, hey, there's 2,000 square feet. It's $2 more. That's going to be roughly a $4,000 upcharge in addition to the $1 million budget. Are you okay with that?
And what happens is they make the conscious decisions along the way, and we always know that that's
Correct.
better. It's not after the fact, this big add-on bill. So the question is does this apply, Brad? Like, I know there's probably some situations where the designer is making the purchases or the builder is making the purchases. But for your conversation today, that's not really as much of a stick point as what is the budget for it, whether you as the builder are going to purchase the wood floor or the designer is, or you're going to purchase the cabinetry or the designer is. It's just you as the builder are the one that it sounds like it starts with 2,000 square foot home. Let's do our hard costs, that, foundation, the things that, like we say, the furnaces, like the things that you don't have a choice on, right? These are the
Right.
things that build a house. And then from there, you as the builder are saying, so of that $2 million budget, maybe, I don't have any idea what the proportion is, but, 1 million of it is on things that you're never even going to have to decide on. You have $1 million to do everything left over. Is that sort of what you're saying, the how to this is?
I do. And I love that you took this path, and LuAnn, and we'll kind of get into depth here about the budget and, all this side. But you kind of took a path here that's really important to understand is all these designers work differently. I understand as a builder that my designers, they have a fee, whether it be per square foot, hourly, whatever it may be, and there's only so much you can charge as a fee, whereas a lot of them do have relationships with vendors, from lighting to cabinet hardware, wallpaper, window coverings, right? And so they, in a perfect world, have their fee, but they can also provide these items because there's markup and there's revenue there for the designer, and we want them to be profitable, right? That's going to keep them in business. That's going to keep the relationship going. So what's really important as well is that the designer sits down with the builder, and this is what I love. When my designers come in and say, okay, Brad, what vendors do you work with? Okay, I'm working with Kohler, I'm working with Cambria, I'm working with Sub-Zero Wolf. Great. Then they kind of have a good idea because I get good pricing, or I'm an ambassador, whatever it may be. And they'll do their best to align a lot of the selections along that path. But at the same time, I'll ask them, okay, am I supplying the light fixtures? Am I supplying the cabinet hardware? Because some of my designers 100% want that in their scope because, again, that's additional revenue for them. And that's okay. And it's really important that we're having those conversations up front, behind the scenes, outside of the client, to say, what are you providing as a designer? What am I providing? And then who are our preferred vendors? Because most designers do understand that they can work within the realms of these other products, but they also understand that as the builder, I'm liable for the building schedule. And if I have suppliers and manufacturers that are on board with my brand and can perform, it's going to expedite the build anyways.
Okay, so what you're saying is it's perfectly reasonable to have this private chat that says, let's just put our cards on the table. You know, what's happening with flooring, what's happening with tile, what's happening with lighting, and to just really say, oh, I see you have a really strong relationship with, say, Monogram Appliances, and you are going to take care of that. Okay, builder man, I'll step out of that. But, you know, I work with Visual Comfort, or I work with Curry & Co., and this is my lighting go-to. I want to provide that. And it's, again, just like every other conversation we have regarding our clients, it's the agreements up front.
Exactly. You want to take out the guessing game. I mean, it shouldn't be a difficult conversation that the designer could say, hey, I want to supply, the Monogram Appliances because I have a relationship there. Okay. And I want to supply the Visual Comfort light fixtures. That's perfect. And the more that I understand their scope, I can put that in their envelope under their umbrella, right, as they're doing their pricing. And then we can focus. But either way, the crux of this, the bottom line is the budget. And getting back to that point, and I'll give props here. So Jenny, who who actually made the introduction to you and I, Jenny with Black Ink here in town, we have a project right now with a client in Scottsdale, and their budget was conservative. They're tight on what they wanted, what their budget was going to allow. And so Jenny was really good. She came in, she sat down, and we had these conversations, with our team. She said, okay, Brad, who are your preferred vendors? And we went through all of them. Okay, what's their budget for countertop slab? What's their budget for, wood flooring? For my kitchen backsplash tile? For my shower tile in the master? What's my budget for my laundry flooring? And having enough project experience, we're able to give her very specific parameters of what these budgets are for each and every location. What products, say, well, here, let's not use this luxury brand. Let's use this good competitor that's less expensive, still going to give us the look. And now she can get creative. In her mind, she says, okay, I know the vendors, I know the budgets. Now I can take my expertise with my design book and with my understanding of, colorizing the home and putting everything together in the finishes. And what's amazing, LuAnn, we spent a lot of time beforehand, before she even started putting together a design book. And it was one of the few projects I've ever had where our original budget almost hit exact. I'm talking within a few dollars on a $2 million custom home. Wow. I mean, it hit almost exactly. And it just goes to show that if you have that relationship builder designer, you can handle a lot of this behind the scenes to make it a more pleasurable experience for the client.
And I'm hearing the value there because you, as the builder, are in your lane doing your thing. You've got probably a contract with the client about the overall budget, but along comes the designer, and if the designer is not truly as knowledgeable as the level that you're talking about with these multiple conversations with you as the builder as to the details of, as opposed to what it is it's taking it from, oh, we have a $2 million budget. Okay, let's make the most fabulous kitchen ever. But you have already decided that, look, in order to get all the things that are non-negotiables in the house, now it creates this line item of dollar amount for each of these separate things. And so Jenny is able to design to that budget. And or, like you said a moment ago, if the client is saying to her, I really wanted this XYZ type of a slab, and she's saying, well, the budget allows for the X amount of dollars. Do we want to go over here? Right. So it's a very open thing.
Absolutely. Because what happens is, if those budgets are set beforehand and the designer really understands that, and it doesn't matter their level of expertise. Anyone can understand if I have $5 a square foot for my tile, not the labor, my tile. I know going into the showroom, and when my client's going over here to this wall, right, and it's $14, I can tell with a straight face, hey, we've already set the budget. You're at 5. This is at 14. And there's something else you said, LuAnn, that I really want to touch upon because this is really important. Is one of the common themes that I've seen in the difficulty with the client or the designer contractor relationship, and I hear this a lot from builders. I don't like having an interior designer because everything's more expensive. I don't like having a designer because they blow my budget. That's a common theme. And my comment to them as I'm working with them is saying, well, that's your fault. Why aren't you meeting with the designer and setting the tone? If the designer doesn't have any idea of the budget because they don't understand all the other costs involved in construction. So if you're not laying them out and communicating, you're not setting them up for success. You're setting them up for failure. And this is where from the front end, if we're deciding on our product together, you're going to allow the designer to succeed. And then the designer is going to make your life easier anyways with the design book. So why not set them up for success?
I hear that, because what it is nobody wakes up in the morning and says, how can I make this the most difficult process for both my client and that builder?
Right.
Right? So one of the questions I have on this, though, is two things. There's two questions I have. First, I'm going to give you a question that a friend of mine, Jillian, had said to me. She sent me a message after you were on the show the last time, and she's like, would you ask Brad this? And Jillian, I'm so sorry, because right before I started, I couldn't find your exact voicemail. But the idea that she expressed to me was that she was upset because she felt in this situation she was being an advocate, a good advocate for her client. And she did not think that she was either handcuffing or compromising the builder. And what she said she did was, she knew what her client wanted. They had had extensive conversation about the type of things that they wanted in the design build project. And so rather than just have the builder give any willy-nilly vanilla quote, she requested that the builder give the quote based on the deliverables that she knew her client wanted. And I guess he gave her a little bit of pushback, and he was like, this should just be a basic quote at this point. We could deal with these things as they come up. But she really wanted the hard number. She didn't want the client to be 200 if it was really 250, or 300 if it was really 500,000. And the end result was that when he built the budget out, it was way more than the client ultimately wanted to spend, and the builder was mad at her. He wasn't even like, oh, well, all's well that ends well. He really took a position of, you blew this job for both of us, because if I had just built that budget based on, he didn't use the word generic or vanilla, I'm putting that word in there, but based on, I guess he probably said, on the way I do it, that client would have hired me. And she said, yeah, but we would have not come in anywhere near. And he said, we deal with that later. And she didn't love that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, she didn't love that. What do you think about that?
I love that, because I think everyone listening has dealt with this at some angle. And it's really frustrating because you can see already a few breakdowns in communication on a few parts. First off, I don't like the mentality where a builder comes in and they want to be the lowest one to get the job, and then they're in, and then they change order them. And that's kind of the mentality there, which is it's not going to be successful, because you may get the job, but by the end of it, they're going to hate you and the designer. Mm-hmm. So that's not going to help, right? And the best way to handle that would be, the designer's done their work and due diligence, as Jillian's done, right? She's created this amazing design, and she's picked this tile, and the contractor's trying to undermine it by picking something else just to win. Well, what needs to happen is, the designer should sit down with the builder, and the builder should sit down with the client. And the way I handle this is say, LuAnn, this is very common. We're going to build your dream home. We want this to be spectacular, right? And, a lot of us, as we're going through design, we have our wish list, and let's design to our wish list. And this scenario is going to be a little bit different. If we have a defined budget, if we really know that house needs to be $1 million, well, a lot of this can be taken away from Jillian and his contractor, because they can sit down beforehand and figure out the budgets for each line item, each area of the home, and make that work. But a lot of us have cases where it's a little open-ended. The clients may not want to give the budget. They like what they like. They may have the financial well-being to do so. And that's where we sit down. And in this scenario, we sit down with the client and say, look, we're going to create this wish list. We're going to do everything you want. But keep in mind that even though Jillian picked this tile flooring that's $8 a square foot, we're going to show you that price so you have it. But keep in mind that we have a VE option. We have a value engineering option. There's another option for tile at $3 a square foot. So there are savings, but let's pick what's important to you. And we can pick and choose where you want, where to lower that. And so that's where the contractor should do a better job of communicating with the client, communicate with the designer, and helping Jillian out and the client by and that's not the route I'm going to take, right? When I'm with my client, I'm going to tell them up front, I would rather be right up front than change order you to death, and then you hate me by the end.
Mm-hmm. And so what you're saying is that in that scenario, Jillian and the builder needed to be able to have more conversation offline, outside of the client, to get in a headspace that is of camaraderie and agreement, number one, right? But number two, to be able to say, like, I can hear what you're saying. If the builder had the wherewithal to sit there in that conversation and be the voice of experience and maybe say, hey, I really see this amazing tile or this cabinetry or whatever that you and Jillian has designed and you've selected, I want to let you know that that's going to push your overall budget. I've got options that I'm happy to show both of you if you decide not to push the budget. But yes, here's your dream home and here's the price for the dream home.
Yeah, exactly. And you're spot on. And this scenario could be where maybe the builder wasn't involved in the beginning, so the builder's trying to get in and win the job. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's important too that in that scenario where the builder's trying to understand where the designer's at with the design and then communicate with the client and say, look, we're going to price this house per your current design. It's a beautiful home. It's a wonderful design. There's some amazing options. So let us price this. Let's price what's currently designed. And if there's some sticker shock or it's a little tough to swallow because of the cost, that's okay. Don't overreact. Don't stress out about that because, Jillian and I can go back behind the scenes and we can pick some areas to scale back on and to reselect and value engineer. So if you set that expectation, it's a softer landing for the client. And then they don't have that immediate feedback or, hey, you're too expensive, I'm going somewhere else. They're only going to think that if you haven't communicated properly with them.
Right. That's a good point. And it sounds like to me that, I don't know, Brad. Look, I've only had the limited experience that I've had with builders, and it's very, very limited. It's either being a party to a situation through window works, working with a designer, and just basically observing the relationship between the designer and the builder and the homeowner and having to be brought in a conversation because maybe in the beginning we're going to lay out where electrical is going to go for motorized shades or something like that, right? For the most part, I'm not in that relationship. I'm the vendor pulled in to do a part of it, right? But I feel like that. And I want you to tell me, oh, LuAnn, you just have so little experience you don't realize. But it seems like to me that until you get to the upper tier builder, that the builders are not like this, that they're not, hey, let's all work together and make this amazing. You know what I mean? They're more like, here's what you wanted. Here's what it costs. It's your fault. It's too much. Tell me what you want to do. It doesn't seem, does it happen at the lower, like the mid-level builder and up, or is it really just the upper tier that they're going to take the time and care that you're describing as part of the beginning of the conversation?
Well, I think you've touched on something that's a global concern, right? And what I've seen is the one benefit of social media, just deviating here, is that I've seen where a lot of these builders, especially younger builders, are becoming more accepting of the idea of how can we be better team players, right? Because when you think of most contractors, it's like, it's difficult, not communicative, they're not, I mean, we all have these stereotypes, which a lot are real. I mean, it's just reality that a lot of these designers are dealing with these, blue collar contractors that they know best, and they've been doing it for 30 years and no one's going to tell them what to do. And I've dealt with that to some extent too. And yes, that is true. But the reality is, and I think that's where it's important that as the designers expand their network, which you and I talked about in earlier episodes, as they're looking through social media and looking for new builders and younger ones. And I can tell you, it's not just the top tier A+ builder that's doing this. I know builders that build at entry level or production homes that are seeking ways to bring value and to be better, right? Everyone wants, if you have any desire to grow your company and be better, then you're going to have this this mentality. And so that's where it's really important that the designers align themselves with builders that get it, that at least are making an attempt to understand their pricing and their database. And, we just had experience recently where the designer and I sat down and we were going through budgets for the house. In fact, she's a listener to your podcast, which is funny, LuAnn, but we were talking about that. But so we're going through the design and we're laying everything out and kind of allocating costs and budgets. And the client came into our meeting, because we had a scheduled appointment with the client, and they wanted all their ceilings wrapped in trim in wood, stain grade wood ceilings, inside, outside. And we sat there, and it's very easy because we had done the homework up front, that we had gone through and allocated costs, that we sat down with the client and said, look, this is not in your budget, but let's get a quick price for you. And so I went through and did some quick calculations based on data history, and we're like, okay, it's going to be $135,000 to do for material, labor, stain, to put this up.
Wow.
And right away, they now have the decision.
Right.
Do I want it? Maybe I'm fine with it. Or maybe let's just do it in the master bedroom and the great room. Right. So let's do it, and it's going to be like $50,000, and we're okay with that. So the more information you have, you're just giving the clients the decision that, yeah, this $50,000 is still over budget to what we originally planned, but that's okay. They want it, and it looks great, and we're letting them make that decision.
Right. Well, and the thing is, what's so important in that, what you just shared is, look, I'm sure it was a very big home if the molding in 2 rooms ended up still being $50,000. But I mean, the point is, I don't know that unless you as a consumer have actually done that before, would even consider that it could reach that sort of number to add moldings, right? And so for you to be able in the moment, because if I'm the consumer, I'm like, hey, let's put molding everywhere. Like I walk back out to the parking lot with my husband and go, that molding's going to look great. I wonder how much it'll be, a couple thousand? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you just don't know. And then to just know in the moment, oh, that's over $100K. How much do I love that molding, right?
Well, I mean, you think about, LuAnn, if you're going to buy a car, and if you're working with a great, salesperson, just a simple analogy, and they say, yeah, okay, you want, a sunroof, and you want, GPS, and you want, these bigger rims, it's really easy if you understand, okay, yeah, these are upgrades, these are additions, these are costs, because you have a template, you have a base starting point.
Right.
And it's very similar with homes, that we have to understand the client's budget. We have to dissect that. We have to really coordinate between designer, builder, figure that out. So we have a starting point. Now as the client's coming in and they're wanting to add something that they saw on HGTV or they saw something on House or Pinterest, Instagram last night or whatever it may be, it's really easy to be on the same page, designer, builder, say, okay, that's fine, client, but keep in mind this. And another example, it's funny, we have this amazing house we're doing, an awesome landscape and pool package, and we had a very generous budget for these items. And the client came in and they're like, okay, designer and Brad and our architect, we want these, we want to have these huge full-size palm trees delivered and set, and we want this very lush. We don't want to wait 3 years for it to grow, and we want full-size, big boxes delivered now. And these are the pavers we want. We saw these, on Pinterest. And so we quickly put together a budget and said, okay, you're going to be about 200% more than what we originally planned. But the quicker we can do that, because we've done the vetting, we've already been working together. We know that we were planning, $6 a square foot for pavers, and now we're going to be at $9. We can quickly do some quick math and say, okay, instead of this, $400,000 landscape package, you're going to be, at $1.2 million. Are you okay with that? Sure, I'm fine. Okay. Yes. Or they may say, no way, I don't want to do that. I want to be maybe at 700. But even if they give me a number at 700, still more than the 4, but at least now the designer and I can work together and figure out how can we maximize their vision, their appetite, and still fit within that confine.
Well, and what I love about this is this falls under my category of don't save your clients money. My brain is constantly, if I have hired you as the expert, I have every expectation that if there is something out there that I should know about, because I said to you I wanted to spend, $1 million or $400,000 on landscaping. I know in this situation they said, I want palm trees, I want this, I want that. But if I'm working with you and I say $400 on landscaping, and you are there and you are the builder and you are with the designer, and the two of you are saying, this really needs this, don't you dare save my $50,000 or $100,000 by not telling me, because I don't want to spend $400,000, and to me then I've wasted $400,000 if that extra $50,000 would make it amazing, right? Yep,
absolutely. And that's where most of the mistakes we make, and I've heard you say this a lot on LuAnn, is we jump to the conclusion of what we think our clients want to hear or what they want. We do it to ourselves with pricing as we send our proposals. I just listened to a podcast. You talked about this, where we undermine ourselves sometimes. And instead of just open and communicative with the client and behind the scenes, this is important too. Getting back into the budget side of things, when you're looking at the designer and the design book, we may have an allowance of, let's just say $50,000 for light fixtures. Okay. The designer may have a say, okay, Brad, I can work with that. 50,000, that's no problem. I have 15, locations where I need to pick either sconces or chandeliers or ceiling fans. I can do that. But where the designer can help even further is say, okay, Brad, I'm thinking at the entry, I want to do the chandelier, and there's going to be, I'm thinking kind of this range, a little glam. There's going to be like 3,000 crystals on there. And I'd love to know that because I have to install this thing. So I can at least have some information where it's not this open-ended allowance, where at least the designer's given me some direction to say, this is going to be a standard ceiling fan in the bedroom, but this is going to be this 3,000 crystal chandelier. So now when I go to my electrician and say, okay, you're going to install the chandelier, that's 10 feet tall, the chandelier itself, and there's 3,000 crystals, he can say, okay, that's not going to take me 2 hours. That might take me 8. And that way, when I'm going to the client, at least my budgets are now on board to every detail. So the client, when I get to install light fixtures, I'm not coming to him saying, hey, we had an overrun on labor. I need to charge you 6 hours, at $100 an hour.
Right.
No one wants to do that. So the more information we can provide and communicate up front, the better it is for the whole process.
I love it. And it seems to me that it's entirely possible that a designer could be called in on a project and the builder isn't as clear on his numbers and his data. And so you're saying over and over, you've mentioned whether the budget's $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, what those fixed costs are for foundation, yada, yada. And then you're saying, hey, I'm giving you $650 a square foot for product and $350 a square foot for labor on flooring. I'm giving you X amount of dollars on lighting. But am I crazy? But are there builders out there that don't come to the initial conversations this organized?
Oh, 100%.
Right?
And to be honest, it's a great question, LuAnn, because even for me, I look at how our company's evolved, right? I wasn't this way when I started my firm, 8 years ago. And we've evolved over time, and we've tried to get better at this because what I've found is one of the biggest breakdowns we have is budget. It just is reality, budget and schedule. These are two things that are really important to my clients, all of our clients. So if we can solve this pain point, if we can bring value to my customer base, and we can now find a solution between designer and I, one of our taglines that we love, we're saving marriages one house at a time. Right? that's like my favorite tagline that I use here at AFT. But it's true. We've all been there where husband and wife or husband and husband, whatever the relationship is, they get frustrated because, we're not. It becomes stressful for them. We should allow our clients to be successful at what they do, and the designer and builder and architect should be able to meet professionally behind the scenes, understand pricing, understand value, and then solve that pain point for our customer.
And so when a designer has an opportunity to do a design build and the builder doesn't have his back end as organized and processed, because look, we all know there's designers that don't have their back end. This is no disparaging on just builders. That like you said, it's the pain point of growing your business. 8 years ago, you weren't as good as you are today. But what if you've got that designer that listens to the show, that aspires to this, that understands it, and maybe he or she also isn't quite locked down, but the builder that the client wants them to work with is nowhere near this. What is your advice for having them help get that train on track? And if you really are working with a builder, it's like, just pick your stuff and I'll price it.
That is a great question, LuAnn. And I think, there's a lot of resources out there, from right now with COVID, it's eliminated a lot, networking events and other socials and the building show and social media. These are direct connect. I've given the offer to a lot of your listeners. They can email me, and a lot of them have.
I know you better watch yourself with that, buddy.
Yeah, it's true. But no, the thing is, like, network with builders in your area to ask them questions, because not all builders, not all designers can be at that level, but find a network, find other designers maybe that are not in your direct competitive, but outside your network, and find out how they're working with the builders, how they're figuring out budgets, and try to understand most of the successful designers have taken the time to educate themselves, whether through other classes, whether through networking events, and with other builders where they have a good idea of pricing, even outside of like their scope, even outside of interior design. They understand what the house will cost. And what there's a few simple ways to do that. A designer could reach out to a builder. Let's say that they're based out of Boston, and they can reach out to a builder in Louisville, Kentucky, And they could look at this home that they just built, amazing home, great facade, great elevation, great architecture, great finishes. What did that house cost you to build? And they may say, yeah, this was $500 a square foot. 5,000 square feet is $2.5 million. Well, right away in their mind, even though the Louisville market's different than Boston, at least they have a target now to say, okay, this house, this design is going to be 500. I know, experience here in Scottsdale that if I'm doing a modern home, it's more expensive than a traditional home because there's no tolerance for error, right? Everything has to be precise and exact on modern. And I don't have any fluff there to move things around. So, the more you ask questions and look at different styles and architecture and a lot of this is over time. If you're a designer, LuAnn, and you're looking at a house, well, if the house is completely covered in stone and brick on the exterior, that's a big cost, right? As opposed to maybe just stucco and paint. And so some of these are, I don't want to say are common, but you start to understand as you start looking at styles, and you can ask questions throughout the country to figure out pricing, and that will help you, as you're starting to put together your own database. That's
interesting that you say that because we understand that we have to do that within the the product and the deliverables of what we do on the design side. I remember Monique Holmes was on the show. Oh my goodness, it's got to be almost 2 years ago at this point, and it was sort of addressing the question of how you have to do your homework. In other words, when a client, if you're an entry-level baby designer and your client is saying, hey, just, you have a project for just one room, a master bedroom or something, and the dilemma and when you're new in business is, well, it did take me 6 hours to find that headboard because I really don't know all the world about headboards. Like this was the first time I really was looking for an upholstered headboard, say. And then you have the seasoned designer that's saying, well, on one hand, we're telling the baby designers, if you took 6 hours to do something, build for it. On the other hand, we're saying to a baby designer, I'm sorry, you don't charge your client for your education. If it took you 6 hours to find a headboard and it would have taken me an hour, that's not really fair to your client either. And I remember Monique saying, do your homework, your resourcing homework on your own time. Invest every single week or month a certain amount of hours where you're off anyone's clock. You're on your own clock. It's Saturday morning. It's Tuesday night watching Scandal, whatever it is. And you are saying, if I wanted to find, like to your point, a glamorous, 6-foot diameter chandelier, let me just spend time sourcing that and then clipping it and saving it. And so what you're saying is to do the same thing with housing, is to notice homes that you like and start to develop an ear, an eye for an all brick home, 5,000 square feet in my area is generally going to be X amount of square foot, or a stucco home or a wood home, and then start to look at the inside of the finishes. Like we talk about our good, better, best. And we say to a client, do you think a sofa should cost $600, $4,000, or $20,000? And it's from that, it informs a lot about the client. And so you're describing, do that same homework with building a home so that they have that basic information that informs their conversation at a higher level. Is that what I'm hearing?
100%, LuAnn. You hit it right on the head because the thing is that I've seen the good designers, at least that I work with here in town, a client will come in with their inspiration for their house, right? Let's just take the modern home, for example. They have this modern home. It's a modern desert home. And they bring it in. And my designers, without even me saying anything, will say, that's $500 a foot. That's not going to be the $300 a foot that you want to spend. Because they know they've done it. They've seen it. They've asked those questions. And to your point, a lot of designers do this research already, right? They're going to say, okay, why are a lot of the outside homes yellow? Well, it's because the sun's so bright. They don't want it white because it reflects, And so there's like historical reasons why architecture design has been done a certain way over time. And so these designers are already learning that. They're learning methods and products and reasons how you put, certain things together and why they're that way. That's going to be education over their years of experience. But they should be doing the same thing with budgeting. They should understand, looking at something, how much is this house? How much is this kitchen going to cost? If I'm looking at this custom kitchen with custom cabinetry and it's inset cabinetry and waterfall countertops, I should be able to know that that's going to be, a 50% upgrade over this standard traditional kitchen. And that's where the designers, the more questions they ask, and the social media is open to do that. I would say most people that I've seen that I network with outside of my network, and that's where I try to network with designers, with architects, with people outside of builders because they have a different aspect and mindset than I do. And just continue to build that through all the resources that are out there.
I love it. And I have one statement and one question. So the statement is, I wanted to get back to when I asked you about the builders and how to break through and, create these relationships. You mentioned that you noticed it through social media that a lot of the builders now are more open to it, whether they're young, newer companies and newer builders. But what I heard in there is that to ask them to just say, this is the type of relationship that I'd like to develop with a builder. And you're saying that you notice that more and more of the up-and-coming builders are open to this triangle of communication between designer, architect, and builder. And just to say it flat out up front, this is how I'd like to work. Are you interested in doing that, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Communication is everything. If you're not going to know unless you ask, right? And the thing that I've seen, and we put a lot of content out there from my channels from YouTube and podcasts and stuff. And what's funny is a lot of the builders that follow me are always asking questions like, how can they refine this? They learn that, I can see the value of the designer now. And so they're hungry for it. And so if the designers are reaching out from their side and asking the builder, hey, I want to be part of this. I want to expedite this process. We can create a very, advantageous team for our clients to go out and conquer now. That reciprocity is I get leads and you get leads and we come in and we have a partnership. You can really build brands together. And I feel that we're taking down those walls where in construction and design, a lot of people even designers were this is my paint color, this is my design. And to some extent, there is value there where they've created something really custom that they don't want to give out. That's fine. But the network's still there where they can network with designers and share techniques and methods and the builders. And so we're seeing a lot of camaraderie now built. And so for the designers that want to do this, reach out, email, text builders in your area and start building that relationship. Bring value to them by you reaching out saying, hey, I want to understand how you price and I want to understand your matrix here so that I can now design better to make your life easier where it's not stressful, where you're not pricing something that's way over budget and now our client's upset.
Right. I love it. It's so good. And it is everything that we do is figure out what you want, why you're doing it, and then figure out how in what you want and what you're doing, it can help someone else. I mean, it's not rocket science, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then the last thing that I wanted to just ask you was, there's probably, we can make an assumption to some point, which is not always a smart thing to do. But let's say we assume that the builder that Jillian was working with isn't such an evolved, builder that you are, Brad. This was a month ago that she asked me the question, and I don't know what's happened since, but if thinking about that this person, this builder, is a human being too, and he's running his business, and maybe he was upset, and maybe he didn't handle it so well, but at the end of the day, he's a guy getting up and going to work just like the rest of us, and he just wanted to do the project. Is there a certain line or tactic or avenue that having an understanding of his motivations, that respects his motivations and understands what he's coming from, that you might suggest that Jillian open the door and say, hey, I thought about this. The next time we have an opportunity, blah, blah, blah.
I love that you asked that, and I have the perfect answer for that. And I learned this, on a job that I lost many years ago. So I went in and I bid a job, and I did that. I bid it exactly per plan, per what the designer had specified. And, my price, just hypothetically, was $2 million. Well, then another builder, one of my competitors came in and he did it two ways. He billed it per plan, $2 million, just like mine. And then he gave him another bid and said, here's a VE version. Here's where we could easily pick some like-minded materials, very similar stuff. It was at 1.6. And I remember the client telling me that the reason they went with the other builder, they said, Brad, they gave us the option. And it's not that we're not going to do the $2 million, but we know that that's an option and they've done their homework. And that struck me because going back to this example of Jillian, there's two ways to do it. The builder may be pushing back like, I'm going to lose the job. It's too expensive. You didn't give me all the information. Okay, that's fine. So let's do it two ways. And it's not, and by me saying this, trust me, it's not a whole lot of time, from the builder side to put this bid together. It's not like they're spending another 80 hours and it's going to cost them $5,000 in pre-construction. So to understand to say, well, let's bid it per plan. Okay, this is going to be $600,000 per your design, but between you and I, Jillian, let's look at a couple options here. Yeah, we could probably do this tile. We could probably do this, take this trim off the ceiling and do whatever. And then we could give another proposal at like $450 and say, you have two options. Like, we'd really like to do the $600, but at least if budget's really important, we have this option of $450 that Jillian and I could still do. Now the client, again, we put the decision on them where they see we've done our homework, we've communicated, and we've given them options, and we'll let them decide what they want to spend and what's valuable to them.
I love that, because it even gives Jillian a place to go back to him now. Even look, they both felt like they were wronged, right? She was asked to deliver a bid on a real thing that her client wanted, and he was upset that they did it and he didn't get the job, right? So they both have a point, but I do see that she could go back to him. This project is probably already awarded and done, but the next time and say, look, looking back to what happened to us the last time, I don't want that to happen again, but here's a way around it. I get to deliver my client a realistic bid, but we also get to deliver to the client a bid that, that lets them know you're capable of this project, even if we want to reduce the budget or whatever it is. And it's just that conversation up front. That's awesome. And I love that you told us that it doesn't take a lot more time to do two bids, because if he says, I'm not doing it twice, now he's just being lazy, right? Like, stop. Do you want this job or not?
I mean, because it could be, he doesn't, between you and I, LuAnn, if the tile design per Jillian's spec, let's just say it's 50,000, and I have an idea, it's 2,000 square feet, the house, I could say, well, if I take $2 a square foot less of tile without picking a different tile and spending all this time to resource it, I just take $4,000. So instead of 50, it's 46,000. And when you multiply that across the board, less fee and so forth, it's a matter of doing two spreadsheets essentially. So
right.
That's where you can really do some quick math and, together and just kind of brainstorm without recreating the wheel.
I love it. It's so good. Oh, my goodness. So, and then to your point in educating themselves, designers, about the budgets and really what goes into it, and conversations on how to go for the win-win with the architect, the builder, and the client. Your podcast is the perfect resource, AFT Construction Podcast, because you are having these conversations every single week on the show with builders. And really, it's just like, what's funny is you listen to my show so that you get the insights to what the designer's pain points are and to learn how to best serve them and work with them. But your podcast is the perfect resource for all of my designers to listen to understand how to more effectively work with a builder. So it's awesome. I love it.
It's fun, LuAnn. It's been fun.
Oh, my goodness. So you'll have to put your thinking cap on and figure out what our next topic is going to be. But I love this conversation about budget, Brad. Thanks so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me, LuAnn. It was a pleasure.
The word budget makes so many people either uncomfortable or just want to run the other way, right? I know it is hard to talk about money until you get used to it, okay? Numbers have a way of being loosey-goosey, and when there's several hands in a pot, things can go south pretty fast, okay? But talking about money with our clients and our business partners, and the trades and the vendors that we work with, shouldn't be that hard. And rather than being a source of fear or frustration, make it something you're known for. Wouldn't you like to be known for the level-headed, serious designer who manages other people's money smartly, right? I mean, think about that as a goal. The person that can be relied on to talk budget, talk money, talk it square, straight head on, and always make the agreements come to fruition. So, because the thing is, taking charge of the money for your projects is vital. It's absolutely necessary if you want to build amazing client relationships and to get the respect that you deserve from builders that you work with, right? And the key is to make sure everyone works together on the front end, right? That's what Brad was talking about consistently. Working together on the front end so that you, the builder, the architect, are a unified team for the client, right? And his solution is so simple. It's like almost unbelievable. He says that in the very beginning of the project, bring the builder, yourself, and the architect together and allocate the funds. just whack it out, figure it out. I mean, it's just crazy, all right? Everybody comes to that initial meeting, puts their cards on the table. Everybody decides and tells each other what their non-negotiable expenses are, who their preferred vendors are, where the wiggle room is, and they work it out. And then you go back and you present it to the client. I mean, I guess I'm simplifying it because I don't actually ever have to do it, do I? But I have to say, it sounds like something to strive for if you have not been able to reach this level of cooperation and collaboration before. It makes sense, all right? And I would say to you that there are several things that you can do to work towards this. Brad and I discussed them a little bit during the show. Let's review them. First of all, to find more builders like Brad, right? Do some, sleuthing around. We talked about look on Instagram, see who's there that looks like they're doing good projects, and see who's talking and listening and paying attention to his podcast, because they are going to be birds of a feather to him, okay? And as I said in the introduction, listen to the podcast. The more you understand about the pay points that each of the builders are going through, the better you can be an advocate to help them, all right? The other thing that Brad was talking about was carve out time to really learn about the costs, the products, the methods, and the pricing that is associated with all the different types of build projects, okay? And he said right there, use social media to ask questions of builders. I mean, that's a great way to build a relationship with a builder. Ask them specific questions, interested in their projects. Meanwhile, you're gaining information and knowledge. I love it. All right. And then building your network. Build your network, with your local build associations, whatever they might be. I know that's a little different now if you're listening in 2020 during COVID, but the truth is a lot of organizations have gone to virtual Zoom meetings. I know that sounds like Captain Obvious, LuAnn, but obviously they have, and some of these monthly networking associations have as well. So now you can take advantage of maybe going to some of these and really meeting some builders and some architects and stuff. So, all righty. In the meantime, I want to say, if you want to just first lock down your projects and make sure they're organized, you can do that in My Doma Studio. So please go over to mydomastudio.com/a well-designed business. Start your free trial. See how that you can first get your own projects organized, and then you can bring that organization to a builder and really impress them. Okay, so it's mydomastudio.com/a well-designed business. All righty, I hope that you are doing everything you can every single day to make your business more profitable. All right, and I hope that you are deciding to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnnNigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.